Hey, it's abonsweapon.com. I'm making a video today about my new neuropsychologist. I've mentioned him before. He's always got great stories to tell me about the fraudulent medical industry that he works in. He's been around corruption. He's worked at state and county hospitals in private practice. At most, he would have 400 patients under him. He's an expert at, pharmacology, as well as neuropsychology. And he's taught psychiatrists. And he was teaching psychiatrists how to do their jobs, basically. UC Irvine. And he is perfectly capable of telling and relating to what I went through, which is great, fabulous. I mean, I've had some people who have been able to relate before, you know. They usually do. They compare it to what they know. And there's stories about cops who rape people and, and therapists, they know very well aware. They're very smart. They know, they've read a lot. They've came across a lot. So, in their lifetimes, they've heard it all, so they know the system's very bad. So anyway, he told me recently about a story of NAPA. NAPA State Hospital. NAPA State Hospital in California. He worked there. And when I was telling him about the state hospital, I was in the Oregon State Hospital about, how I was sexually abused, and then I become a target. And that's not even the only time I was a target there, and the whole time I was there. But the sexual abuse would be enough to make me a target for even murder. And assaults and conspiracy. And, that's how I got hurt so bad, and they'd go as far as to frame me to look mentally ill, like I always self-inflicted all my injuries when the staff did it. That I never beat myself up once, and staff never did anything. See, staff... Okay, the staff would beat me up, they'd claim I'd do it myself. The staff would assault me, and then they'd say I'd do it. How is that possible? That just makes no sense. There's no credibility to that. There's cameras and mics recording that. At NAPA, he told me, oh yeah, I know how dangerous these places are. At NAPA, there was a young male patient and a female staffer, head RN, one of the top nurses. She would take him and sexually abuse him, have sex with him. And then she told him, she said, if you tell anyone, I'm going to kill you. And that was not just a threat. That was something she was capable of following through with. So she keeps coming back and raping him. And a male staff either knew about it a while or decides to go and report it after finding out. He goes to the superintendent's office. He says, this is going on. Superintendent immediately gets the sheriffs involved. Sheriffs come in and talk to the boy who refuses to talk to them. But they wanted to get him out of the hospital. We want to take him to another hospital, get him out of NAPA. They were refusing to let him do it. The sheriffs weren't going to be able to do it. Well, they bring him out of the hospital, and they go and they interrogate him there. He spills all the beans. It was all true, and I don't want to go back to NAPA. And he explains everything that happened. He was that afraid for his life that if he said anything while he was in the hospital, that, he would be killed. So, criminal investigations going on. They had to go all the way to the superintendent's office. And I don't know at what point. But it could have been at the superintendent's level. Or after the sheriff's level. Because I can't remember the full story. But anyway, it took them going all the way to the governor's office to get them involved to help with the investigation because of how locked down this place was and apparently how hard it is to prosecute state employees. So the woman ends up getting prosecuted. She does some prison time, but she gets out. However, the witness, the guy who went and made the report, he gets murdered. He's dead. He's gone. The victim ends up, getting out and luckily survives, but could have died too. And so he thought it was necessary to tell me that story, because he knows about all this stuff. He's telling me stuff about, at one hospital they had a room of brain dead people that they had tortured to be brain dead, giving them excess shock treatments usually and medications which would leave them unable to do anything. They all wore diapers, sat in their chairs, had to be bathed, had to have their diapers changed and all that. They went from functioning adults that couldn't even move, couldn't even go to the bathroom on their own. And they had rooms of people like that. And so he put an end to that practice when he got there. Because he argued that they were just torturing people. There was no medical need for what they were doing. And yeah, so but that goes with the history of psychiatry. They used to do that, and they still do it. Nowadays, they're doing it with drugs. It's more profitable. So they've moved it all out of they don't do the shock treatment as much. It's very rare. They don't do lobotomies no more. They do exclusively chemical lobotomies. And that chemical lobotomy term, it's the psychiatrist's own terms for it. When they came out with these drugs, Thorazine was one of the first ones. They called it a chemical lobotomy. So they understood that the drugs were harmful and hurting people's brains with chemicals, not needing to surgically open the brain up and cut on it. So they could do it with chemicals now. And, those drugs are linked to causing very severe brain damage. Shrinkage between 3 and 10%. Swelling of the brain, fluid buildup, scar tissue buildup, vein swelling, severe neurological issues, diabetes, whatever other bullshit. Well, he told me some more stuff, though. He also told me there was another hospital he worked at, and this one's outside of Los Angeles, I think. And he was telling me, okay, well, what we have here is a children's unit. And this was actually like a baby. There were babies here. And this part of the hospital, they were taking care of the babies. And this is just another story about the medical stuff. What they were doing was giving these babies Benadryl to make it so they didn't cry. Over-drugging them with Benadryl and other chemicals. Oh, cocaine. So they were giving the babies cocaine. And I mean, come on. And so they ended up investigating this place, and it's all shut down now. But it was actually happening at more than one place. This is what they were doing at more than one place in California. So this is like, you don't give a baby chemicals, dude. That's just not what you do. The baby's brain is developing, and it's going to be okay by the time it reaches age 25, okay? Here they are giving the baby brain-damaging chemicals to control what it does when it's in the crib. And it can't do nothing in the crib but cry. And here they fucking are, drugging the baby with Benadryl and cocaine. That is fucking sick. Alright, so the other stories, he had more. Okay, and there are stories about why the medical care system in California is so shitty. We're all being taken advantage of and left with poor medical care. Well, one of the things behind it, these Indian doctors, literally, this is it. They're all Indians down here. everyone's an Indian. You look around, they're almost all Indians. Well, the reason for that happens to be because in India, you get free medical training there. So you don't have the $300,000 debt or whatever it takes to go to medical school in America. So they're training these people to be doctors, and they come here to America. They get licensed really easily, and then they practice here, and they take all the money from here and they send it back to fucking India. It's a whole money-making scheme. And that's resulting in poor care because people aren't getting good medical care. And these doctors couldn't care two shits about their patients, pretty much. So that's a real problem. That's a serious problem. And he's got a lot of other stories. I mean, that's concerning. I can't believe that there's so much wrong down here, you know? And NAPA, by the way, NAPA's been investigated. And they've had these problems routinely. I was looking on the internet. Various news articles are saying, well, that's routine for NAPA. There's murders there. There's fucking rapes of not just patients, but even the staff. The patients in there are raping staff. But it's fucking incredible. There was one thing where the director was involved with raping a foster child. And, you know, that was one of the biggest things. I read that in there. That's credible. Incredible. And that's all in there. And what else was there? There was the Department of Justice investigations, which showed that the place just chronically fails to pass the bar. And then they were refusing to let them investigate, and there's suicides in there. And you're seeing the staff being deliberately indifferent to the patient's needs. Right there in the report, they're saying, oh, the family member was really in touch with the patient, knew that the patient was spiraling out of control, getting depressed, blah, 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 despondent, crying, stuff like that, calls the staff that don't do nothing. Because that's what they do. They're flackies. They don't give a fuck. And they're trained to ignore the person as much as they can. So, no one goes and checks on him. They find himself hung in his room. And that type of stuff goes on in these places. They don't have no cheerleader squad there. We're trained, master's degree to go talk to, spend time with them all day long. These places are more like prisons. You don't get time with professionals. And this is another thing this neuropsychologist told me. It's all about drugging. People don't get it. The facilities are about drugging. So the mental institutions, nothing about rehab, nothing about, going in and getting better. It's all about drugging. The sole purpose of being put in a place is to be drugged. And if you end up in one, even if you have different needs, you're getting drugged, and that's going to hurt you. So that's what I'm listening to this, and I already know this stuff, but to hear him back it up and validate it's good, It makes me wonder why these places aren't shut the hell down, because some people don't need drugs. In fact, the mass majority don't. So why are they doing that? Why are they? And he's telling me about the DSM-5. There's a movement now against the DSM-5. The DSM-5, and he's got friends at all the top hospitals and universities. He's a really experienced guy. I'm not going to give his name on it, but he's telling me he's going to a conference all about this with some doctors. There's an uprising against the DSM-5. It's going into effect this year. They're going to switch over to that from the DSM-4. The book has so many new diagnoses in it. It was written by a team other than the DSM-4 team. So apparently the DSM-4 team, the main doctor behind that, and the crew, completely not part of the DSM-5. And this new book was written more with the support of insurance companies and people who wanted to make money. So and doctors themselves and drug companies. So they've expanded the damn DSM-5. It's got many more diagnoses. And now the purpose, expanded drugging, that's going to be part of it. So the sole purpose of doing this was expanding the amount of people who could be drugged. Whereas like DSM-4 had some restrictions where, you know, they didn't recommend drugs for personality disorders, for example. DSM-5, they're going to drug them. Borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, people with conditions that don't benefit from drugs. And now notice the drugs are all like, there's only really 3 classes of drugs. The chemical lobotomizers, that's the major tranquilizers like Zyprexa and Abilify. These just sever connections in the brain, 80% plus of dopamine and other receptors. You're living off reduced amount of brain activity. Parts of your brain aren't working together anymore with that drug inside of you. You have reduced emotions and impulses, reduced executive control, sometimes some reduced mental health symptoms, but, I mean, come on. Unless you have voices, it's just hurting you. And they're giving that to everyone like candy, though. Abilify is one of their top drugs. Then they have minor tranquilizers. Those ones, you know, like Ativan, Valium, those ones I don't really care how they work, but they're minor tranquilizers. And they're known to increase rate of death by 17.5%, cause cancer, dementia. Lithium is another drug. That one's I'm not putting in these 3 classes of drugs. Lithium, though, that one is now linked to causing 33% kidney failure after 10 years in people. So 33% of the people who take it will have kidney failure. That's fucking insane, man. 10 years? All it takes. That's causing serious damage to your fucking kidney. Now, the antidepressants, that's actually called psychic energizers. Those are just chemicals they found tweak people's behavior and make them loopy and shit. And then they started spinning them as antidepressants. And they don't really fix the depression. In fact, many people actually think they feel apathetic and zombie-like on those drugs. So a psychiatrist thought that, there's some comments that were on Facebook about this, not Facebook, but Wikipedia. Psychiatrist once said he believed the antidepressants were actually creating mental illness. And that's what they do. You take a normal functioning human being and they're experiencing reality so fucking well they might feel depressed about something. How do you fix that? By giving them a drug that knocks the reality out of them. And then sometimes, I mean, you end up with something different. But is it a treatment or is it just hurting them? Well, and all the science shows that leads to treatment-resistant depression and mania and brain damage. That's all. That's all you get. You don't get a cure. You don't walk away better. And the side effects can be crippling. Yeah, they have forms of sexual dysfunction that last long after the drugs too. And you have tardive dyskinesia and tardive dystonia and all these crazy conditions that never go away. And there's no treatment for any of them. Besides other drugs that don't even work to cure it. They'll sit there and they'll add a ton of side effect drugs on. Derp, derp, derp. Like stupid asses. Each new drug is just damaging a new part of your brain. That's all it does. And in reality, that's okay to the doctors because they understand that what they do to you with these drugs is life-changing, gonna kill you eventually. And my neurologist said something like that too. That they're gonna kill you with these drugs. This neuropsychologist, sorry. He said that's what they're gonna do. That's the end goal. And there's these U.S. Department of Justice reports almost on every hospital around the country. So you can go and you see how bad these shitholes really are. Now, in my case, you know, some of what I went through wasn't just the hospital, but it was an atmosphere of abuse. And what I'm saying, it wasn't just the hospital, it wasn't me, but it was other stuff, military stuff, intelligence community crap, police stuff, state stuff. In fact, that's the stuff most people don't know is there because it's so well controlled and secretive, you know. Well, that's why I've been also talking about how these facilities are really eugenics facilities. They know they're going to kill you. They know that you're not walking free. They know that you're there to be abused. The expected outcome is you will have diabetes and brain damage in 10 years. They just don't care. It's like a eugenics program. A long time ago, Oregon, for example, Oregon was focused on that. They had a board of eugenics. It's just like the Holocaust was brought about. Just like how that was brought about, they had, you know, the psychiatrist, and they were weeding through the DNA and diagnosing people who were ineligible to mate and should be sterilized. In Oregon, they had mandates that people who enter a state facility would be sterilized before being discharged. Did you know that? The history on this is just amazing. In the Holocaust, psychiatrists were diagnosing people as Jews and homosexuals and mentally ill, and then sterilizing and then killing them. That was what the Holocaust was about. And America had similar programs of eugenics where we would neuter and spay fucking human beings who entered the state hospitals and prisons possibly. And in Oregon, it was called the Board of Eugenics. And other states had similar boards and mechanisms. I've read some stuff about the other states having that too. That sounds like shit. Because you never know if you ended up in one of these shitholes by accident or what. And they don't even have no fucking goddamn, you know, system of science behind it. You know, there's no brain test that verifies anything. You know, so how do they know what's wrong with a person if it's all of a doctor's opinion where he's willing to lie to frame you, to keep you there, and then put you through a eugenics program, drug you up. And the modern system is all drugs, you know. By the time they administer drugs, you'll either be incarcerated forever, or you'll be drugged to the point that you're not going to be able to get to work and having a woman or a man is to be with. So you're not going to mate. That's the thing about the programs today. So they're still on the same level. They're not doing the forced sterilization directly anymore. They'll just prevent you from mating in other ways. And the people in these facilities know what they're doing. The atmosphere, the power of the unions. You accuse a staff or something, you're dead, dude. You're getting a higher dose of Zyprexa. You're getting some Seroquel. You're getting retaliated against. You're spending another 20 years in here after your approved release type thing or whatever. There was a story. Here's another example. Let's go to, I think this one's in New York. Yep. New York Daily News. A woman, black woman. Here's an example of the outrageous abuses that go on these fucking psych facilities. So a regular woman who works at a bank gets her car taken. And it's a BMW, really nice BMW. The police come and take it. She goes the next day to pick it up. The police refuse to give her a car. And then they rather than arrest her or whatever, they handcuff her, hog tie her, throw her in a car. Actually, they put her in an ambulance. That's what it says here. And then they take her over to the hospital. They take her to the hospital where the doctors immediately come out. They inject her with a drug which puts her out. She wakes up to her panties being taken off, her underwear. And then she wakes up, and later she conks out again, wakes up later in a gown. She's in a mental institution where the doctor frames her to look mentally ill. Literally, with stuff that was verifiable. Well, number one, says she's unemployed. Refuses to listen to her how she has a job at her bank. Number two, she's trying to explain what a good person she is and why she doesn't need to be there. She's saying, oh, well, even Barack Obama, the President of the United States, follows me on Facebook. Not Facebook, sorry, Twitter. on Twitter. In fact, he does follow her. And over 664,000 people are followed by Barack Obama. So, but the psychiatrist goes, well, that's a delusion. And one of the requirements for discharge is to acknowledge that Barack Obama does not follow me on Facebook or Twitter. Serious. So she's drugged, she's given injections, and they try to force her to take lithium and Ativan while she's there. And they keep her there for over a week. She's getting abused, no history of mental illness. Oh my God, dude. Then all of a sudden they just release her. Now she's got a lawsuit. But the lawsuit specifically points out the medical records and what the doctors put in there about Barack Obama following her on Twitter. How it was a requirement for her discharge to admit he wasn't following her. And it points out that she's unemployed and stuff. See, this is, she told them that she worked at a bank, but they refused to believe it. So, in my opinion, this was actually a female psychiatrist. What you're seeing here is a product of police brutality. Number one, the police wanted to get rid of her from the police station, so they had her fucking hauled off to the hospital. They didn't have enough to arrest her because she didn't commit a crime. And it's an act of brutality because they knew what they were doing. Instead of just beating her up or assaulting her, they played this route here. There's no judge, no attorney appointed at the hospital, no due process, where they know what goes on in these places. The primary purpose is drugging. That's the only thing they do there, is drug. So, while she's in there, it's probably the product of the psychiatrist being buddy-buddy with the police. Then, on top of that, they're doing their usual thing of framing everyone who comes into contact with the place. So they, get to do whatever they want, basically. Administer all sorts of drugs, give a diagnosis that's not real, and all this shit. And this time they got caught. They just got caught doing it so fucking, openly that it was crazy. Because this was stuff easily verifiable. And anyway, these facilities, no matter what, they're all about abuse. And I don't know of any that aren't for-profit driven for pushing drugs. I don't know of any that actually treat people and help them. I don't. Because not everyone wants drugs, but they want help. Where do you go for that? Well, they don't have a place for that. They all do drugs. They all fucking jack people up with drugs. And they don't really care if that's what they do. I don't know, there's just this big force in America where there's no one there to these doctors could be committing the most fraudulent shit, the most criminal shit ever, but no one's there to stop it. And this is a system in America. So you can get abducted off the streets, sent into a psych institution, drugged, beat up, violated, and there's no protection mechanism. And it's been around for so long that everyone already knows it's there. So what do you do if everyone knows it's there and no one's done nothing about it? You're just helpless because you think you got an option. You don't. Who are you going to call? You can't call the police. They're not going to do nothing. They're there secretly backing the doctors up. You know how many people they brought down there before? What about, an advocacy place? They don't do anything. They're there too to back up the doctors. It's really fucking crazy. You can complain all you want. It could be so real. I had a situation like this. They even went as far as hiding my grievances. And I've got a record that was properly delivered grievance through a fax machine with the right number and everything. UCLA, they deliberately hid one of my grievances at UCLA. It's faxed properly. I've got the confirmed delivery message. It pops out from the fax. But they had no record of the fax. And I put in some damning shit. The staff were whistling at me. They were ignoring my medical history. My own outside doctor, they were ignoring what he had to say. And CCHR told me they abducted me just to do military experiments on me. They just love to fill their beds up with people. And there was a level above that. Like, they're tracking different people around America, so I knew I was going there. So, they're a big military industrial complex place, right? They're one of the top fucking facilities, UCLA. Another one, they're all over the place. These hospitals get DARPA money, CIA money. They do experiments on the public. I've been doing it for decades. So when I get there, little did I know this actually isn't the top hospital that's listed in U.S. News or whatever. They list it as one of the best West Coast hospitals, but it's not really. This is a joke hospital. You're not gonna get help there, or at least I didn't. And I was abused there. They knew who I was before I even got there, and they fully participated with the government that was targeting me. So I get there, it was just a setup. I've been planning this for a couple of weeks. I get there, they have it all set up just to abuse me, and they know my face. And then, so I put all this crap into a grievance, and I put in there the staff, how they were abusing me. They were refusing my brain scan. They refused to do any blood tests that I asked for. My social worker had some stuff to say to them. My neurologist recommended the brain scan. And I sat there working with them, and they were threatening me every day, abusing me. And I got told some stuff the first day I got there. One of the staff said, he just said some stuff. So I put that in the grievance. The grievance disappears. And I got my website URL there about how I'm a government target and everything. The grievance was faxed right to them, right there on their desk. Disappears. No investigation into it. How do I know that? Because I called them. I called them and I asked, I haven't heard back from this on this grievance. And we have no record of your grievance at all. In fact, they were going to try to force drug me there. That's another thing in the grievance, despite the fact that I had a diagnosis of PTSD and brain damage. And that my outside doctors were supportive of me. CCHR got me a lawyer, and two components led to me getting out.